Hi guys, and welcome to Crypto Exposed. Okay, let's get you guys updated for the weekly goings on with XRP and HBAR. So, starting off with XRP, we have Jungle Inc., a prominent XRP influencer, who was basically, he's done some analysis on XRP and Bitcoin's previous market cycle trends. And he was basically showing that if XRP had followed Bitcoin in the 2021 bull run, just going by its previous activity, where XRP could have been priced at, because we all know that obviously XRP was going through the SEC versus Ripple lawsuit during the 2021 bull run. So it was the only top 10 crypto that never hit a new all-time high. Wonder why. So he was saying that if XRP had followed Bitcoin's basically price ranges, its jumps and stuff like that, XRP would be $24 right now. So the quick caveat that I'll throw in regards to this is, you never know what XRP's price would have been, right? Because we don't know if XRP would have definitely followed Bitcoin's same trajectory. We don't know that for sure. So we can't say 100% that XRP would be $24 right now. But that can work both ways, right? Because while we can't say that XRP would definitely be $24 had the lawsuit not have occurred, we could say that it could be higher. So it could be lower, but it also could be higher. Because if we think about it, in the 2017 bull run, XRP surpassed Bitcoin in performance. It was the highest performing asset. So not to say that that would have definitely been the case again in 2021, but it's possible because it has been done. Do you see what I mean? So what this is basically, just showing us is, the long story short is, had the SEC not sued Ripple, XRP would most likely, I would say most likely, be way higher than it is right now. Because let's just be real here. We can all acknowledge, okay, let's just say it wouldn't have hit $24. Let's say it would have been lower, or it could have been higher. That's also a possibility. It still would have been higher than what it is right now. I think we can all agree with that. It's very likely it would have been a lot higher than what it is right now. So this is where I was saying in the video about this specifically, yeah, I'm angry when I think about that. Like, I'm really angry because the SEC did actually damage the community and XRP's potential. It did limit it a little bit because, yes, XRP won in the end, Ripple won in the end, but at the end of the day, like, they have hindered its progress. So while they didn't obviously kill Ripple and XRP, they definitely wounded us. They absolutely did. A lot of us didn't get a chance to make any life-changing wealth in the 2021 bull run, right? Like, some of us could have possibly have been out by now, or at least have made some profit. Now, I would have never have sold all my XRP, but yeah, if XRP was around $24, I mean, even if it was around like $10 to $15, I probably would have sold some, to be honest with you. So yes, that's frustrating to think that we probably could have had that, but we've had to wait because of the SEC. So yeah, I think that was some good analysis by Jungle Inc. And while we can't say for sure if it would be $24, I think the safe thing to say is it would be a lot higher than what it is right now. We then have Jake Claver and Crypto Eri both talking about international payments not being XRP's only use case. I actually agree here with Jake Claver. As you guys know, I've critiqued him in the past, but I just call it as I see it. If I disagree, I disagree, and I'll explain why. In regards to this, yeah, absolutely. I've been saying this numerous times. Like, a lot of people have been worrying because of like RWA and just stablecoins in general, saying, is this the end for XRP? You shouldn't just be focusing on cross-border payments for XRP. There's so many other things that XRP can do. You've got DeFi, you've got RWA tokenization, you've got the DEX. So there's plenty of things that's happening around XRP to not really need to just focus on that one use case. Now, was it XRP's primary use case? Yeah, that's what they was framing it as. Absolutely, I acknowledge that. But that doesn't mean that that's what the be-all and end-all was for it. That was never the case, right? There's plenty of other things happening, and it only takes one successful use case to make a network. That's what people have got to understand. It can just take one other use case. So even if it's not cross-border payments, there could be, tokenization or something like that. That's big for XRP. That, creates its success. So yeah, I absolutely agree with that overall. I've done a full video on it if you want the full breakdown. We then have XRP with Flare, which is opening up more doors for utility. Yeah, so Hugo Fillion was basically talking about how, Flare are helping to expand XRP's utility. Absolutely agree with this. So when you connect XRP to Flare, you actually then open the doors for smart contracts, which is not something that's currently on the XRP ledger, but it is something that's being discussed. The whole reason why they didn't add smart contracts in the first place is because they didn't want it to interfere with cross-border payments, because that was their main focus at the time. So they didn't want to bog down the network with smart contracts, and that affects XRP as a bridge asset for cross-border payments. So don't get me wrong, I completely understand why they didn't choose to go with smart contracts. I get that completely. But it's something now that they are considering, because they're not just solely focusing on international payments anymore. So yes, you've now got with Flare, that does actually open the door to smart contracts. It actually enables smart contracts through Flare. So that is definitely something that could be huge, because that now opens the door for DeFi on a big scale. And with DeFi, that could be a huge driver, because with DeFi, you can like lend, borrow, use your XRP as collateral for things, right? To, get into other assets and stuff like that. That's something that could be absolutely massive. I was here in the 2021 bull run. DeFi was absolutely huge. It was an absolutely huge thing within the actual bull run. It was the main theme of it, to be honest with you. So I completely agree that that could open the doors for many things, because just as a quick example, you could use your XRP as collateral to take out a loan. Obviously, you've got to do your own research on all this to understand how it all works. Then you could use that money that you get from the loan in stablecoins to earn a yield on the stablecoins, right? So you could go to an exchange that says, hey, let us hold your stablecoins for a year and we'll give you a monthly amount of, like, say, 5%. So what you get with that monthly yield, you could use to pay back the loan slowly but surely. And then whatever you've still got on top of that is profit. And then you can do whatever you want with that profit. And that way, you've not actually sold your XRP, and you've not had to actually pay any tax either, because borrowing against an asset is classed as debt. A loan is a debt. It's not a sale, right? So you're not gaining from it. So in that regard, you could also be avoiding tax liabilities. Now again, do your own research, because it could be different in different jurisdictions, countries, etc. But definitely something that could be worth looking into. Okay, so moving over to the HBAR side. So we had a post by Ted Pillows, and he basically put up basically like an image, and it said that Hedera had basically generated zero revenue in like 24 hours, but yet it has a $4 billion valuation, right? Okay, so I'm not going to go through the whole post because I've already covered it in detail, but HBAR Bull came up with an amazing response to this, but I'll just tell you what my general thoughts are anyway. First and foremost, like, we are in a bear market, so activity is going to look very different to what it's like in a bull market, right? You've got to understand that, like, things are always quiet during a bear market because people haven't got the money to be messing around and, trying and doing new things on a chain and stuff like that. Like, they're not going to be doing these types of things with the network when it's like this, right? It's survival mode at the moment, and this is where a lot of companies and networks and developers fail. Like, they go under during bear markets because this is when they haven't really got the money to sustain themselves, right? It's all good when you're in a bull market, but when you're in a bear market, it's very testing. So that's one thing. The second thing is we're still very early into this space. Like, there's not a lot of networks at all that are really making like huge money at this point because it's still early days. Now, that's not to say that there's no networks out there. I'm not saying that, but it is still very early for a lot of these networks at this point. Like, we still haven't even got the clarity out past yet. So we don't know what's going to happen when those doors open and you've got all the institutions coming in now, right? So it could be that once the institutions get involved, Hedera is one of the networks that's heavily picked and utilized, and that could, take the price soaring. Or it could be that, an institution comes in and makes this incredible use case on the network, and that's what saves the network. As I said earlier, it only takes one use case for a network to be successful. So you've got to understand that, like, while things might be the way they are now, it's still so early, it's hard to see like the long-term, vision of this. And I think a lot of these people are still looking at things from the old school way of like, stocks and stuff like that. And, like, crypto is new. It is still new to a lot of people, and there are still people who are still skeptical. So that's all I think that is personally. I don't think this is anything to be concerned about, but that's just my opinion. Then we've got Hedera being number one in RWA development activity. Yeah, absolutely great to see. This could be a huge metric in terms of Hedera's future, right? Because Hedera, as I've said before, when it comes to RWA, seems to be doing very well in that area. And RWA, as I've said before, it's a huge part of the the industry right now. Like, one of the big things that's hot at the moment is tokenization. And we can see it happening now in droves. And, you know, for Hedera to be like #1 in terms of development activity, that could be a huge indicator for its future. So, you know, that's a very, very positive thing to see. So to me, I thought that was really, really great. And it's very telling as well. So yeah, very, very big positive thing there. Okay, last thing we've got is Hedera with Archax and T-bills. Yeah, so Archax have released a new product called $Govy, which is basically T-bills. And it's basically putting stuff on chain. Like we're talking about T-bills being put on chain. It's going to obviously make them more efficient. It's going to make them cheaper. It's going to make them 24/7 access. It's basically, you know, the newest upgrade to be able to do your standard traditional finance. Basically, you're moving traditional finance basically on chain. So that's where, you know, we're going in the future. It's quite clear to see now at this point. You know, we know that the Clarity Act isn't passed yet, but at some point it's going to happen. Like, it's clearly going to happen. They're not going to let crypto die out because it's too useful. There's too many things that you can do with this technology to let it go to waste. So it is going to happen. Now, how beneficial it will be for the general average retail user, that's a whole debate for another day, because you never know. Like, if the banks get their way, we're really going to suffer, because the banks want us to be dependent on them. They don't want us to be able to go to, you know, a crypto exchange and get a better yield through crypto exchanges than you could a bank. They don't want to have to compete, basically. So they're fighting against that. But at the end of the day, like, this technology isn't going anywhere. You know, these companies are not going to reject having such better technology, the new upgrade of the future. They're not going to reject that, like, and just turn it away. It's too useful. You know, it's like with AI now, like, everybody's turning to AI. Why? Because it's useful, right? Like, at the end of the day, like, it's not nice to think that the jobs and stuff that's going to be gone and lost due to AI. But who's going to turn it away? Who's going to reject AI when, you know, you've got to think, like, AI is not going to call in sick. You know, it's not going to have any days off. It's not going to complain about working conditions or anything like that. It's not going to be asking for a pay rise. Do you know what I mean? Like, who's going to reject that when it can be so much better for a company? Now, from a human aspect, I get it. It's horrible, right? But from a, you know, a business perspective, which a lot of these people do think from, it's just completely beneficial for them. So that's just the way it is. So yes, this technology is obviously going to be, you know, accepted. It is going to continue to evolve. And we're seeing this here now with Archax doing this, more institutional adoption. And it's going to continue to grow from here. So very positive there in that regard, and showing you again that Hedera is getting picked for these types of use cases. So I think that's a real good look. All right, guys, that's you all up to date for this week. Thank you very much for watching this as always. If you did like it, please remember to like, comment and subscribe so you can be updated for future XRP and HBAR content. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you can be alerted when I do drop a new video. Thank you very much for watching this, and I'll see you all on the next one.